Welcome to the Ferris Love Podcast. Here we explore spiritual insights and practical strategies to help you cultivate a family life rooted in beautiful, self-giving love. Join us as we invite experts to share uplifting perspectives and actionable advice for navigating the joys and challenges of modern family dynamics.
Welcome back to the Ferris Love Podcast. Today I have Laura-Anne from Laura-Anne Photography with me. I'm so excited for this conversation. Laura-Anne, how are you doing?
I'm doing so well, Amy. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. So we actually met at Seek this past year. We connected because we're both photographers, but I'm so excited to actually have you on the podcast to chat about photography. As the listeners know, I am a photographer, and so I can't wait to dive into all things beauty and Catholicism, but I'm really excited to do it in a setting where there aren't thousands of people around.
Yes. Oh my gosh. We can actually hear each other talk.
Okay, so just kind of to jump into everything, Laura-Anne, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself to the listeners who may not be familiar with you or your work and share a little bit about yourself?
Yes, of course. So yes, I am Laura-Anne. I have been married for 7 years to my husband, Brandon, and we live in Langley, British Columbia, Canada, in our little condo at the end of a charming little cul-de-sac in the middle of a city. So we are country people at heart. My grass allergies just need to get with the program to get us there. I have been photographing Catholic weddings for almost 15 years. I was 19 when I first photographed a wedding. So that just feels like an absurd amount of time. Very grateful. But even before my couples reach the altar, I support them with resources designed to help them grow towards a fulfilling and God-honoring marriage. And so with my camera, I capture the moments that most people miss on a wedding day, just the little celebrations of marriage that happen throughout the event. And with my digital resources, I stand alongside these couples to help them grow in their faith and their relationship. So whether it's with a photo gallery of all these sacred moments or a prayer guide or a wedding mass template for all their guests, my goal is to show off the beauty of marriage while being realistic about everything that it entails.
That's amazing. I really enjoyed looking through your website, and you just offer so many resources to your couples, which I think is really, really unique. I don't think I've ever seen a Catholic photographer offer what you offer in terms of resources. What kind of inspired you to that onto your wedding packages?
Yes. Well, when my husband and I were going through marriage prep, and this is not going to be like a diatribe on the state of marriage prep in the world. This is just it was a hard time for us to go through marriage prep because we were both very dedicated to our faith. My husband was a recent convert, and we had done a lot of work on ourselves as individuals before we started dating. So the marriage prep we were offered was it felt to us very surface level. And it wasn't really for us. It was for, the gamut of people that go to marriage prep at a diocese, and trying to speak to everyone at the place they're at is a hard job. I feel so much for all those diocesan marriage prep leaders. You have a tough job. And so I remember speaking with someone at our diocese a little bit after we got married, and he was like, we offer what we can, and we want to support people that have other things to offer too, because we know people need more than what we could offer. And that just kind of planted this idea in my head. And because I'd been in the wedding industry for so long, by the time we got married, I had all this experience with events. And so I had written out basically a guide on how to plan a wedding in a Google Doc. And then I turned it into this massive guide of how to plan a Catholic wedding. And a lot of it was just stuff that I knew because of my experience. And I knew that my couples just didn't know that, because weddings, in the world, as you know, are, in the Catholic world at least, are very much like you do it once generally, and you become really good at it, and then you don't do it again unless you start a wedding planning business. So to be able to offer couples a guide that's not a do this or you have to do it this way, or this is the only way to do it. I'm really against that kind of thinking, but to say, hey, this is a conversation you can have. These are questions to answer that will help you make decisions as a team about your wedding day, so that you can have a day that feels like yours and not like someone else's. So yeah, I had created this guide, and I was like, I could give this to my couples, my actual photography clients. And they just started to really receive it well. And I offer it you don't have to be a client of mine to get it. You can also get it on my website. But I really felt like this stream of things that are practical, truly helpful to help plan a wedding, but also to help people prepare for marriage at the same time. Because yes, you're planning the logistics of an event, but you're also figuring out where your priorities are, where your fiance's priorities are, and how to bring those things together. I mean, the number of things that go into planning a wedding are just, it all really is practical marriage prep. If you're doing it together. If it's all on one person's plate, it's a different story. But if you're doing it together, it really can be just a practical exercise in preparing for marriage. So that's kind of where it came from. And then I also really love to write. And so I just was writing personal reflections for years and years. It's actually one of my husband's favorite stories to tell about how he read my entire blog before he asked me on a date. And he basically knew he wanted to marry me from the get-go because of that. So that was like quite the thing. So I had been writing, and my husband was such an encourager of that gift of mine that I started writing more prayerful kind of things. And so I have a few prayer guides as well that my couples get access to, just to, because I don't know about you, but for us, it was like, how do you pray together as a couple that doesn't, in a way that doesn't feel like awkward or forced or like just, it's going to feel a little bit uncomfortable because it's new, but how do you make it less so?
Yeah,
Having some
exactly.
kind of like outside guide was always helpful for us. And so I started writing a few prayer guides, very simple reflection questions to answer together, and a prayer to close. And so my couples also get those things. Actually, I especially love my Holy Week one. And as I just had couples share about how they loved it. They loved going through it together. So, and it's all, about preparing yourself for marriage. So it's, yeah,
That's
I just love all
so
those things. So that's my
cool.
like long-winded how I got into that. There you go.
That's amazing. But I also think I've been in photography for about 10 years, but I haven't been in weddings specifically for that long. I'm going on maybe my third or fourth year. But if there's anything that I've learned, it's that there's so many nitty-gritty details that you do not think about in the grand scheme of a wedding day. But even something as simple as like the wedding coverage, the number of hours that you choose, 5 hours, depending on what time your wedding starts, could have the photographer leaving before the first dance. So it's just things like that that people don't think about because they haven't charted out the flow of the day. And so I think that having, one, a guide, but then also just that all that knowledge helps the couple better prepare for the sacrament, which is what this whole thing is about. And so that's so neat and so cool. Do you only do weddings, or do you do other I can't think of the word, but categories of photography as well?
I mostly do weddings, but I definitely do family photos as well. I often find that it'll be couples whose wedding I did that then come back years later and say, hey, or they come back, a year later and they go, we're pregnant. Can we do maternity photos? And then it's family
Oh, that's
photos.
so
And then,
sweet.
so to have that, like that thread of my art in their vocation go
Yeah.
together. So it just is really so special.
Yeah, I love that. That's so cool. Okay, so I love your work. Your photography has such a distinct sense of peace and beauty, and it's edited well, and that makes me so happy. But I would love to know how you got into photography, kind of the style behind it, and your approach to photographing just in general.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, happy to share. I went to a liberal arts university, a Christian liberal. Wow, say that 3 times fast. Liberal arts university here, like locally, and I started as a psychology major because that's the major you choose when you don't know what you want to do.
Yeah.
But as part of my degree, I had to take an art credit, and two of my 3 siblings had taken the photography class, and they said it was an easy A. And then I
Nice.
went, yeah, I'll do that. So the summer between my first and second year, I took it. And I remember having this feeling like a few weeks before the summer class started that this was going to be an important part of my life. But I didn't really have the language to realize that was the Holy Spirit speaking to me. And it was. So I took this class and I became obsessed. I mean, I was borrowing my sister's camera. I had it on me all the time. Eventually, my parents were like, you need to get your own camera because she never gets to use her camera anymore. So I bought my own camera and it was attached to my hip. Between classes, I'd be taking pictures of my friends. I was not so diligent in my classes anymore. I was just on wedding blogs, scrolling for inspiration, just knew that I loved the beauty of weddings. And at that point, it wasn't necessarily Catholic specific. It was just weddings are beautiful and I want to photograph beauty.
Yeah.
and I really just was obsessed. So less than a year later, a friend of mine, her cousin, they were already legally married, but they were reverting back to the Catholic faith and they wanted to get married in a church. And she said, would you ever want to photograph a wedding? Yes, please. Absolutely, I do. And so they knew that I had never photographed one. That was very important to me for them to know that. And it was like the biggest bridal party I've ever seen in my life. I think there were like 18 of
Oh,
them.
that's huge.
Right? I'm not exaggerating. It was huge. My first time. And I remember like it was a hot day. I like lost my voice from like just talking and like the
Yeah.
strain of and like being tired. I think I got sick anyway, but I remember driving home just like sweaty and gross, feeling like I had the best day ever and I just wanted to do it all over again. And so that was the goal. I mean, I changed majors, I still finished my degree, but throughout my time in university, I was again photographing anyone and everything that I could possibly do and end up photographing a few more weddings. Eventually it turned into mostly Catholic weddings and I became just a Catholic wedding photographer. But there's this um there's a beauty about our faith and about weddings and marriage that I just couldn't really put my finger on until I was doing it more and more and realized just the incredible feat it is to be getting married in today's world. That this is like actually not the norm for people to be getting married, especially in the church. And I had a bit of a like reversion. I grew up Catholic, but basically that summer, after taking that photography class is when I had like a real conviction to follow Jesus and to put those things together and to see the sacrificial love that Christ has for us and that is what spouses are called to be showing that off to the world in a way that is accessible to people because weddings are like a thing in the world, but that it's this a covenant, it's a sacrament, and to be emphasizing those things is not the norm. So I could be evangelizing through my work and just showing off the beauty of marriage in that way.
That's so cool. It's kind of a side question, but was it photography that kind of brought you back to the faith, or were there other things that played a role in your reversion back to
It
the faith?
was not. No, I had been dating someone and made some mistakes in that relationship. And when we broke up is when I really felt the weight of what had happened. And it was in the beauty of nature. I think beauty definitely played a role. It wasn't necessarily photography, but
Yeah.
in the beauty of nature on the retreat with some other student leaders. I had this very tangible experience of knowing that I had done things that were wrong, that I had sinned, but knowing that Jesus had died specifically for me to be washed clean of those things. It was a very freeing experience, and it was set in a Protestant environment, but the fact that I had my Catholic faith to come back to and to go to confession and to then follow the Lord in that way was a very real. There's no doubt in my mind that learning photography at that point and having this experience happened so close together for a reason. To be able to see that and to know that, I mean, life is just suffering is guaranteed, right? Suffering is guaranteed. We make mistakes, and the Lord is still there. There is still beauty even in the hard stuff.
Yeah.
So the crossover made total sense. And then to be able to yeah, again, not have the language to express how important beauty was, but to be able to start doing photography and like picking up pieces slowly through this artwork.
For real. Oh, that's beautiful. So, okay, April is the month of beauty for the Ferris Love podcast. And we've had guests on that talk about how beauty is something that we kind of have seemed to lost, like completely, not completely, that may be a bit of an exaggeration, but we seem to have kind of lost our eye for what is true, good, and beautiful. How do you train your eye in the everyday to see beauty and to appreciate beauty? I'd love to know.
I had a very wise mentor once tell me that gratitude was the key in life. And it was when I was going through a very difficult time. I had moved away and I had moved back in a very short amount of time and really thought I was going to be in a beautiful, sweet season when I had moved back. And it was not that. It was actually so difficult. And so she very lovingly pointed out that I was not looking for the good and that I needed to do that I needed to make a list. I needed to make a list of all the things that were good in my day and to start thanking the Lord for them. And so that's like a rhythm of life that I have every day. My prayer starts with, thank you, Jesus, for, and I write down at least 5 of the tiniest little things that I notice either the day before or that day or whenever it is. But I think that really is the key, is to be on the look for them. Like of course, we're going to see the hard stuff, the sad stuff, the terrifying stuff. I mean, we're bombarded with the worst headlines ever.
Yeah.
Constantly, if we're on our phones, we're constantly getting them.
Mm-hmm.
Turn off all your notifications if you're listening. Do not have any notifications ever. That is also what I do. But I think there is something very important in lifting our eyes to look for the things that are good, true, and beautiful. And so that we are actually training ourselves to notice those things first, and to not just look at the big generic thing, but to look for the tiny little things. I mean, like I live near Vancouver, which is like Seattle. Very rainy, very gray in the winter. Today it is sunny. Praise God. Every day that there is sun, I thank God for the sunshine. But some days I have to even go deeper and go like, okay, great sunshine. But okay, thank you for like the sun hitting the dust through the window and how cool it looks. Those kinds of things that are so mundane, but that help train to look for beauty, so that when I'm met with it, I recognize it.
That's so amazing. I love that answer. I don't think we've had anyone say that answer before. I completely agree. And I think that we as a culture have kind of lost our ability to appreciate what it is that we have, because we live in a very fast-paced world. I mean, even if you think about social media channels and the way that they are designed, one, to keep your attention, but then also to keep you on the platform for as long as possible. But even if you look at the way, say Netflix is designed as a platform, it's auto loading the next thing like 3 seconds after a show or episode or movie ends. It's supplying you with the next thing. So, I think you're so right. Like, our inability to see the good in the world is so evident. But also, I think that I love the digital space. I think it's really cool that we can shoot on digital cameras and we don't have to wait weeks to get our film scans. I know that film is coming back and that's amazing, but I do think it's fantastic that we have this ability to get digital prints that we can send our clients fairly quickly. But with this age of digital, I feel as though we've completely lost the beauty of the tangible. And it's something that I think that we don't actually know the effect it's going to have on us. I recently had to dig through some baby pictures, and it was so fun going through the physical, like, artwork that my mom had saved. And then once you hit like 2007, there's nothing. And so they're all somewhere on a hard drive. I don't know where they are, because, you're talking about the average family who just has digital photos and they're lost in the cloud or whatnot. But I was thinking about, there's so many memories. There's so much that my family did, and I don't know where to start to look for them. But I would love to hear your thoughts on how families who are living just amidst this digital age could maybe bring a little bit more of the tangible to their lives, so that they can have memories, so that they actually have something to hold on to when they get old.
Yes. Yeah. I heard someone say that we're living in a digital dark age. Our memories are being lost because we trust the cloud, or Apple cloud storage is not what you think it is. Please Google that. It is not the backup that you think it is. And the memories we have, of course, we're holding them in our hearts, but I don't know about you, but sometimes I always tend to need an actual physical reminder of something to then jog the memory of what we actually did. And yeah, to have that tangible thing and to be able to see it. I mean, if you can see behind me, I have pictures. They're of my clients because I love them so, but I love being able to print things so that it's not just I thought of it and now I have to go hunt and scroll on my phone. And then I inevitably get distracted by like, I'm just going to check my email or check my Instagram real quick. And it's like, I have so many thousands of photos and videos that I don't do anything with. I have more recently been very convicted to actually be going through all my personal photos. I do find that, like, for photographers, maybe you can relate to this, Amy, that it's like the cobbler has no shoes, the
Yeah.
photographer has no photos. Like, that's how I feel sometimes about my own
Yeah.
personal photos. But I I have been very convicted. I am going through my hard drives now and, like, actually picking the best ones and have, like, great plans for a scrapbook of our
Love
life.
it.
Um, we don't have any children, and we're unsure if that's the Lord's plan for us, but our life is still worthy of being documented and shared, and to be able to share that with other people too, because it's like for the two of us, I'm definitely the more sentimental one in our relationship,
Mhm.
and I want to look through all the photos, and I also want to share them with my friends and with my family, and to be able to say, like, look, we
Yeah.
live, we have
Yeah.
life. So I think for families, it's that the discipline of, one, I don't think we need to document everything. I
Yeah.
think I definitely find myself living in this scarcity mindset, which
Mhm.
is a very spiritual thing, that if I don't take this picture, I'm going to forget. And I just don't think that's true.
I think a lot of people live in that
Yeah.
headspace.
Yeah, I have very vivid memories of things where I didn't take a picture and I can actually remember them versus pulling out my phone and looking at it through the screen and living it through the screen. I feel like our brains, I mean, I never dream about my phone. There's got to be something there that, like, the brain knows if you're looking through your phone, it's not as, like, tactile as just remembering the moment. But there's that. I think that's an important thing. Even in my work as a photographer, I don't take a picture of every single thing that's happening. I
Mhm.
I mean, I've been doing it for a long time, so I know how to anticipate moments that are happening. The important things are being captured, but I don't need 20 photos of the same thing. I just need the
Yeah.
one. We just need the
Mhm.
one to remember. And so I think that if that's helpful for families to, one, be like lessening the load of how many photos are being taken or how many videos are being taken, so that when you do go through them, and this is what I'm starting to do, is like at least once a month, I'm going through and then I'm deleting the things that I don't want. And I'm
Yeah.
just keeping the things I do want, so that when the scrapbook comes to life, I have less to go through to print. Okay.
Exactly.
But there's also so many cool like apps out there that, again, it's not about the app, it's about what the app gives you. Like, I think
Yeah.
Scrapbook is a great
Mhm.
app that I have friends that have used, Chatbooks, where you basically upload your photo gallery to it and they make you a little book and they print it and they send it to you. Like, it's a subscription.
So cool.
That kind of thing, or even just, I mean, I know I'm a photographer and I'm all for professional photo labs, but there are so many great labs out there for families
Mhm.
to get inexpensive prints done so that you
Yeah.
can just, and I maybe I'm like alone in this as a photographer. In the photography world, you know this too, Amy, that flat lay, like those thick cardboard flat lay albums are like the thing.
Yeah.
I personally hate them. You can't fit enough photos to satisfy my heart into a flat lay album. So
Yeah.
I am definitely a just print 4x6s and get one of those old school, like,
Flip
flip,
books.
you just put them in all the sleeves and just
Mhm.
live it up. Like,
Yeah.
that's really having that tangible thing so that kids can actually, I mean, if you're all about, like, designing a photo book, I know I have friends who do and who are, man, they are so good about, they have literally a year by year photo book collection.
Oh.
I love that. I love that because I know and I have seen their children flip through these books and then be reminded of, like, "Oh, yeah, our family did that.
Mhm.
Oh, we did
Or
that. Look at
even
that."
just like, "Oh my goodness, you were so much smaller back then," like, because you were a baby.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's yeah.
Yeah, I think, yeah, having actual physical prints around the home in albums or in frames, it shows our stories, and I think that's so integral to our life, to be told the story of who we are and where we come from, and kids especially. I know that I said we don't have children, but I have a lot of friends with children.
Yeah.
I'm around this to know that they are looking at these photos and going like, "Oh, that's when mom and dad got married.
Mhm.
Look at us in this family photo." I know that there's, like, and maybe this is not a thing talked about outside of photography world, but I noticed this shift in photography where um there's a desire to show the more raw and messy moments of life, and I am for that. But
Mhm.
there's also this desire to have this, like, picture perfect smiling at the camera moment, and I'm all for that too because I think
Mhm.
that we can do both in a
Yeah.
family photo session. And I think what we're trying to get with, we want the authenticity, but we also want to be at our best.
Mhm.
And I think for me too, when I think about the pictures that I've printed of my husband and I, it's in general like a really, like, a beautiful portrait, because
Yeah.
when I look at it, I go, oh yeah, we can be like that. We are called higher. We are called to be our best. We are called to be looking for beauty in our everyday and like remember this moment of beauty that shows that it's possible. And to have those reminders for families in their homes that there's joy and goodness and beauty, even if life is currently very hard and very difficult, or I'm very annoyed with the people that I live with, aiming for heaven and for higher with each other.
Yeah. Yeah. I really love that you just said that because it brings up the next question that I was going to ask, which was a listener question. She wanted to know about family photos and how do you balance that need, or even if it is a need, for formal family photos with just one, it's hard to do family photos, but then also, is it kind of a vanity thing to say, like, this is my this is my perfect family that's all dressed to the nines, or you kind of answered it in your last answer of we're called higher, but I wanted to know if you had any other thoughts specifically for the question in regards to vanity.
I would say that I think this listener and maybe other people who are listening feel the same. You'll know it in your heart if it's becoming more about showing other people what you have versus being grateful for what you actually have. I think that is part of the distinction in vanity is there's nothing wrong with dressing your family like we dress up for church.
Yep.
You can dress up for a photo. Absolutely. Is it the norm? I'm gonna guess not, but it is a special occasion, so we can dress up for it. We're also, I think, and this depends on photographers, but my approach is that we are creating art together. And so I'm gonna send you a general guide of what to wear and where you can maybe find pieces, but I'm not asking you to revamp your wardrobe. I'm just giving you inspiration for the location that we've chosen so that everything marries together in a really beautiful way so that when you do put it on your wall, it feels like art and not anyone could have taken this picture.
Yeah.
But when it comes to documenting like a memory and having just a memory of your family, I would rather you set up your phone with a timer and take a picture all together, even if it's not perfect, and have a photo rather than never get family photos done.
Yeah.
Like there's definitely a balance of that. But if you are getting family photos done, it's how is your heart? And I actually have this in my family photography guide talking about how are you preparing for the session, not just practically, but with your heart, because it's easy, I find, for parents to get a bit of like, we have to get it perfect. We have to get it right. We need to listen or we're not going to get it. And that's that holding everything a bit too tight, a bit too much like it needs to look a certain way for it to be perfect. And my encouragement is to open your hands a bit and to let your family's personality shine so that I can actually capture who you really are and who you are at your best. I mean, like,
Exactly.
I'm not, I mean, I will take a picture of a kid crying, but as like this is for your personal memories, not for you to like make fun of your kid on the internet. Like, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
But there is once I find that parents are able to get to have that openness to holding those things together where it's like the reality of who we are can depend on the day. And who knows what it'll be like when we do family photos. But who we want to be as a family is this we are looking at Jesus. We're aiming for heaven together. We're trying to raise little saints. We are becoming refined through this journey of parenthood. So how do we show the beauty and the glory of this vocation that we're living out while the reality of having a 2-year-old is in the mix? And if there is a way to do that where it's a peaceful, relaxed environment, and that requires parents to have their hands open to let your littles lead the session, to lead the photo experience, so that we can capture them when they're actually smiling and not just when your kid is forced to smile at a camera. Like,
Oh,
it's
100%.
not going to look the way that you know your kid looks when they smile. And I don't want you to have a photo of them forcing a smile. I am pretty good at dealing with children. I will be able to get that, but there is we're all in this together to make it an experience of authenticity and gratefulness and also showing the best of your family, because you know what you're like at your worst. You don't need a reminder of that.
Yeah.
You need a reminder of you guys at your best when things are at their worst.
That's very, very true. And I think that it is a good reminder and something that, that I've come across, multiple times. I have clients that come to me year after year after year. And what's so fun to see is the change in the parents because, I photograph a couple of families that have tons of boys. And when I first started with them, the boys were crazy and they were running around, and that we just flowed with it because, like you said, you let the children lead because that's the best way you're going to get a great photo. Reassuring the parents, like, this is fine. If your child trips and falls and cries, it's fine. I'm not going to suddenly leave. You'll be okay. He'll be okay. Comfort him. But it's so cool to see how every year they come back, they're just so much more relaxed because they know a great photo will happen. You just have to let the session unfold as it does because it's just life. And I think that for parents who may be unsure about family photos, it comes down to the photographer. Choose the photographer, don't choose the photographs because, beautiful photographs are beautiful photographs. But if the photographer isn't one that connects well with your family, it's going to be harder to do that. And, just be comfortable overall because I think it really does change who's talking to you behind the camera.
Absolutely. I mean, gosh, we could have a whole different podcast. But my 2 cents on that is that it really does matter because you'll have these pictures, but you're going to remember how you felt taking the pictures more than the pictures. When you look at the photo and you go, that's a beautiful picture, but we were all really upset.
Yeah.
And you're just gonna feel that whenever you look at it. And you're not even gonna look at it. You're not gonna print it. You're not gonna print a photo if you felt awkward or uncomfortable or like genuinely upset at something that someone said to you or your kid that day during the session, or knowing that we had to bribe and like it was a fight to get a photo. That's not gonna be beautiful to you anymore. You're not gonna want to remember that. And you might have a moment of like, hey, we promise you we're gonna get ice cream after this. That's a little different than
I've had mothers bring bags of chocolate chips and she's feeding the chocolate
absolutely.
chips.
That kind of stuff is like, that's comical and funny and like, okay, with children, sometimes that is just part of it, but you make it part of it. It's not the fight or the battle to get that. But when you have someone who understands the dynamics of sometimes kids just need a minute without a camera in their face, and we're not going to force it. We're not going to, and sometimes I can comfort a kid, but most times they need their parents, and we're just going to step back and maybe shoot that moment from a distance because that's actually going to be a really great photo.
Yeah, exactly. Or even a lot of times I'll say if a parent is worried, depending on the age of the kids, I'll tell them your kid picks up on the energy that you bring. So if dad is annoyed about having to take family photos, your kid's going to pick up on that and he's going to bring the same energy. And so they imitate what they see. And so if you bring this is so exciting, we're going to take family photos, it's not going to be too long, we're going to have a great time, usually we get a very great photo. So
the prep work for a photo session starts weeks before. It really is how are you talking about it on the calendar? How are you helping your kids try on clothes that you're not sure if they fit in anymore? Like, all these things contribute to showing your family at their best. So
okay, I would love to know, how do you think parents can help their children grow an appreciation for beauty? We've talked all about beauty. We've talked about, about preserving memories, slowing down. But what's one thing or a couple of things that you think parents can do?
I think a big one is kind of the practice that I think that I do for myself, is that practicing gratitude and practicing looking for things. I mean, this can even be on a walk. My husband and I do this all the time where it's like, look at that bird. And then you both look at the bird. Everyone looks at the bird. If you're, or look at these flowers, look at this tree. And a lot of these things are nature based, but that is a really easy one to hopefully just to be able to like go to a park and just take a walk and lead the noticing. I think that's a real big one. And then I think too is having beauty in your home. I know that I grew up in a home that was like a bit scattered, and that's it was a lot scattered. It was a lot scattered. It was a bit of chaos, but the urge to go from like the chaotic home to like the millennial gray is very real. And I think we got to rein that in of that. Like, I love a good like clean space, but I think we need to be adding color and beauty into our homes so that it's a normal part of life. to have this kind of stuff in view. And I don't even mean just like, I definitely think like child appropriate books, like the artistry behind like a book aimed at a child is different than maybe one aimed at an adult. But having beauty that is timeless, like paintings and church art or sacred images that are just classically beautiful will help. If you're seeing it, if you're exposed to it, then you're able to notice it in life, and you know that this is part of it. It's the same thing with like having your family photos up, knowing that you're part of a family, that this is who you belong to. It becomes part of your narrative of who you are. And so to be surrounded by beauty helps the narrative of what is truly beautiful and what can I hold it up against.
Yeah.
My 2 ones is like, be noticing beauty out in the world and be bringing it back into your home.
I love that. I think it's, the same as you've probably shot at so many different churches, but when you walk into a church that is actually made beautifully, it just takes your breath away, but it also allows you to appreciate the mass at a deeper level. I think that's something that, my childhood parish got renovated when I was, in my formative years, but it's really changed my faith life in a way because it's giving me a deeper appreciation of the beauty of Catholicism, which helps me photograph the Mass in a way that is just beautiful and everlasting and representative of what heaven is. We had a guest on who mentioned it's hard to appreciate beauty if you're surrounded by ugliness. And so I think you're so right in that we have to surround ourselves with it by choice in order to appreciate it. This has been such an amazing conversation. I loved getting to dive into it. I feel like I really did have to restrain myself from just getting into the nitty-gritty of photography because that would have been so off topic. But thank you so much for taking the time to talk about beauty and photography and all things regarding the Catholic faith. How can people find you?
It has been such an honor, Amy. I have loved our conversation. If anyone is interested in hanging out with me online, my website is Laura-Anne.ca, since I'm Canadian. And my name is hyphenated, so you'll see that in the episode title. But I'm also on Instagram at Laura-Anne Smid. No hyphen there because those don't exist on Instagram. So not confusing, but those are the 2 best places. You can find other things, like I have a Substack and I have some other resources you can find on my website, and I'd love to hang out with you.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us and share all of your amazing tips, wisdom, photography, and knowledge. Everyone go check her out on Instagram and socials. She's amazing. Thank you again so much for taking the time to chat with us.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Fairest Love podcast. In 2026, we continue to share the devotion to Mary, Mother of Fairest Love. If you like what you heard on today's show, please visit our website at fairestlovefamilyproject.org, where you can find additional podcasts and other resources for families. Be sure to also check us out on social media at Fairest Love Project. Thank you for listening, and we'll catch you on an episode soon.